It's that time again. Hello everybody, this is Angus the Mad Cow for my February edition of my ranting hour. Yeah, I've been juggling them back and forth with the idea, should I do it every week, should I do it bi-weekly? Well, right now my time schedule sucks, so you're gonna get it once a month for the full show. I'll pop in some random rants here and there, maybe some lighter side stuff. But for now, we're just going to gear up, sit back, and blow out another full hour. Another thing you guys probably noticed before, the way I set it up, it seemed like I was going to be putting like little snippets of songs here and there. And that was the original game plan. But I'm decided against it. So the way I'm going to set up my shows from now on, until I change my mind again, is I'm going to do a full hour of rants. Instead of hitting pause here and there, I'll just take a break. But, I won't be, signing off. So you will get a full hour, but it'll be a full hour of me. Joy. I know you're just so looking forward to it. And I know the February one is late, and February's almost gone, and I just got January on the site. Hey, the site's just new and up and running. And it wasn't actually up and running until February, but I've got a January, my ranting hour, that I recorded back in October, or November, I don't remember. But anyway, alright, sit back, relax, enjoy the ranting, get pissed off. It's better than being pissed on. This is Angus, and this is my ranting hour. Let's go! As you guys have, at least the few that are still following me at this point on the start of my career, because this is the start of my career. I mean, I've only been doing this for a few months. I've just recently gotten my complete works onto the website at the time that this is being recorded. Of course, if you're listening to this later, of course, that's not going to make much sense now, is it? Duh. But anyway, those that are, I'm already repeating myself. Blah. God. I'm just going to roll with this. Anyway, for those of you that have been following the Angus beginnings, you've already noticed that I keep changing my mind on how I'm going to run stuff. Well, that's probably not going to change. I'm very scatterbrained, especially for those that, most of the people that are following me actually know me, at least a little bit, from like online stuff. Because still, most of the people that I know in real life absolutely refuse to go and listen to my rants. I understand why. They have to listen to it every day. But yeah, I'm still trying to get a feel of how I want to do things. I've actually learned a little bit about, well, not actually the coding. I stink at HTML or any type of coding, period. I actually, went to college for computers and, yeah, found out real quick that was not the line for me. I love computers, I love tinkering with them, but I'm obviously better on the hardware side and running the software than actually creating the programs. Yeah, that's a little bit trickier than one would originally think. And these people that if you love video games and you're like a big gamer, they try to push that, when they advertise, go to college and, learn to be a video game programmer. Programming a game and playing a game is you don't get to sit there and play games for fun. You have to play the same stage like a million times to find all the bugs and document stuff, and it's not all what it's cracked up to be. I know a few game programmers. They say it's rewarding work and it pays well, but it's boring. But they do get the first crack at a lot of games. God, I'm totally lost my train of thought on this. You guys are in for a bumpy ride on this hour. I'm telling you. Anyway, but that makes the best stuff. I mean, later on, on this hour, it'll get better. Come on, stick with me. The Angus will come through. Anyway. But yeah, I keep changing my ideas around. I'm just now getting the website. That's what I was talking about, HTML. I don't know how to use HTML, but I've got this nasty little program that translates everything into code for me. I can make little boxes, and I can type in text and move everything around where I want it to go. And there's several different programs that do that. And the guy that I actually have working on my website, actually paying him to do a professional site, he showed me some little tricks here and there, and I've done some tweaking, and it's like, well, he didn't quite get this little section right, so I've kind of gone in and, made tons of backups, so if I, screwed anything up, I could just, get him to fix it. It's like, hey, dude, I screwed up my site again. Can you go upload the right stuff so it works? Yeah, I've already had to do that a few times. But, see, that's the best way to learn. That's how I learned most of my computer stuff, was hands-on stuff, not sitting in a classroom listening to some boring professor going, yeah, snore. But yeah, go play with it, at least to learn enough stuff to where, you can back it up, and if you mess something up, you can reinstall it to where it was before. That's the key thing. Then you can sit there and play around with it, and if you mess something up, you've got that thing to fall back on. But yeah, I'm not sure where all I'm going to rant about tonight. Might got some lighter stuff in there. Tongue-tied. Film at 11. God. I think I just need to go ahead and stop right here, take me a little breather, and come back. And hopefully we'll come up with something coherent. I'm going to take a break. I'll be back with you guys in a second. Disclaimer. This one might get kind of ugly. Deal with it. If you don't want to listen to ugly, harsh reality stuff, you might want to just skip this track. Okay. Yeah, this is something that set me off earlier this week. It's obviously, me and my friends are destined to never have fun ever again. Because every time we have fun, like the immediate week or so afterwards, just goes to pot. I mean, it really crap week for me and all my friends. It's not just on me. It's on pretty much everybody I know right now has just had a really, really crappy week. And to start it all off, my buddy of mine's getting married next month, so, we didn't have a bachelor party. They have this new thing called a tool party. The ladies have their lingerie party, so the guy's like, well, we want to get gifts too. So they created the tool party. I'd never heard of it before this. We had a really good, small social get-together on a Saturday night, going on Sunday morning. Really great party. Everybody got to make fun of me. I had way too much fun. Way too much fun. And Sunday morning, one of my good buddies, known him for like 13 years, we got in an argument about how long we knew each other. That we had to do the math. And of course, my brother actually knew exactly when we met, because he's the one that introduced us. That's another story. I'll get into that later this hour. I have to tell that story. But anyway, what I was saying is that Sunday, we get a call about 11 o'clock in the morning. We're still trying to wake up. And Patrick's phone's going off. And he's the guy that owns the sword shop. And his phone's going off. Can't find it. So we're digging around for it. Eventually, it rings like 3 or 4 times before we can actually track this thing down. And it's the police calling him, letting him know that his shop had gotten busted into. Yeah, some idiot, don't know if he was a druggie needing some money or whatever like that, takes a rock, busts out the glass for the front door, goes in and steals the cash register. Walks, but doesn't take any of the swords. We've got swords in there that range anywhere from, $30 to $300. Well, actually, they've got one sword that's in there that's like $500. It's a functional German flamberge. But anyway, doesn't steal any of the merchandise. And they actually hit like 4 places that same night. Same MO. They bust in, take the register, get out. That's how they work. They hope for as much money as they can out of registers, which is kind of bizarre to me, because most places count the registers down at night and there's nothing in them. They just get an empty cash register that they bust open for nothing. So hopefully a few of these places have surveillance cameras and can get these guys caught. Because that's what I wanted to go into, was a rant on career criminals. people that just don't want to go out and get a normal job. They just want to take what's not theirs. And I'm of the old school, you know, where if you steal something, you know, I can understand if somebody's starving to death, you know, and they might be on a little bit of a hard break, and they, you know, snatch an apple out of a food cart. You know, well, me, there's plenty of places you can go for help, but, you know, some people that can't think that way. They're, you know, but we're not going to get into all of that. You know, survival is different than being an addict or just a crook. You know, eye for an eye. If you steal something, we chop off your hand. If you kill somebody, we kill you. If you rape somebody, we cut off your nuts. Okay? None of this drugs, you know, they've got drugs that are supposed to make people impotent and stuff like that. No, hack them off. Alright? Gone. Well, me personally, if you're a serial rapist and one of those, what they call the career criminals, you know, they talk about rehabilitation. Some people can't be rehabilitated. Some people can. Hey, I went through my bad stuff and I straightened out. I wasn't as bad as some people. But I mean, there's some people been sitting on death row for a decade, and we're feeding them 3 times a day, cable TV, and all this other stuff that they get in prison now because, you know, it's cruel and unusual punishment to put 3 people in a cell with 1 porta potty and no TV or anything like that. You know, I'm sorry, if you're a crook and you're a bad crook, you don't get no sympathy from me. You ain't getting cable TV when we got people starving out on the streets that can barely feed and clothe themselves because they, you know, maybe have a little hard knock or they got laid off or something like that. Why should you have it easy? You know, I'm all for the chain gangs and rock fields, getting them out there doing some, you know, busting, but that's, you know, they would consider that slave labor and cruel and unusual punishment. I'm sorry, if you start breaking the law and your civil liberties become very limited in my book. But that's why a lot of people call me a radical and extremist. I just have really extreme views of how I see things. And they're like, well, what about all the innocent people in jail? I know there's innocent people in jail. There's been case after case of people, you know, new DNA evidence that have released people that were convicted wrongly. But I also look at the greater picture here. The world is overpopulated. We got way too many people on this world, and we're going for self-determination here under our own hand. But that's another topic altogether. I'm trying to stick with the career criminal things. I've already had to redo this rant several times. Once due to a phone interruption, once due to the recording for some reason just screwed up. It was all robotic and stuff, so I'm starting it over. And like I said before, when I do my editing and something doesn't come out right, I just try to start it over from scratch. So bear with me here, guys. I don't even remember what I talked about before. And it sounded pretty good when I was doing it, but listening back to it, I couldn't make out anything I was saying. So anyway. But yeah, these career criminals, I'm sorry. If you're a crook, you know, if you're a murderer, rapist, molester, thief, you know, I have no pity for you. I'm going to lock you up. And I pray to God that somebody doesn't come into my shop or my house, because the cops ain't gonna have to deal with them. They just gonna have to deal with me, because I was raised, if somebody threatens you, you do all in your power to protect yourself and your own. And if that involves taking a life to protect your life or the lives of your loved ones, you do so. And I will do so. My pappy brought me up right. You don't draw a gun unless you intend to aim it. You don't aim a gun unless you intend to shoot it. And you don't shoot a gun unless you intend to kill. So be prepared for that if you come up against me. I work in a sword shop. Within 2 feet of any place I am in that shop, I have a weapon. I really hope somebody doesn't come in there and do something stupid. That would just be a bad day. But anyway, I think I got my point across. I'm going to go take a break. I'll be back with you guys, maybe on something different. Maybe continue this one. We'll find out. Okay, we're going to go a little bit lighter side here. Going to try to get in two stories of how I met two of my best friends that are basically family. I call them brothers. Well, the second guy I call brother because he calls my other best friend that I call brother, but that'll come out in the story. As I only have one blood brother. But the first gentleman, and I think I've mentioned his real name before, but I try to stay away from real names. So we're going to use the name that a lot of people know him by. Hammerman. We'll just call him Hammer. Well, Hammer and I met right at like 25 years ago. In second grade, we were both kind of, I was the skinny, nerdy kid, and he was the overweight, outcast. We were both rejects, pretty much growing up our entire high school career, and even, elementary and on up. We were a part of the reject crowd. We never really seemed to fit in. But Hammer, being a larger child, a lot of people just kind of stayed away from him, thinking that he was, he had a bad reputation of being a bully, even though he wasn't. He was one of those big guys that nobody really messed with because they were afraid of him. Me, I had what you called, the short fuse. I had a real bad temper, growing up. Who'd have guessed? But there was this one really cool oak tree in our playground. Huge tree. Took like, 10 kids to wrap around this thing. When you're little, that's huge. And it had this one little nice crook in it. Little dip where the roots kind of shot out. Great place to sit. Nice shady. Good view of the road and some of the, there was a farm area behind the playground where you could just sit and watch the cows. And there had a couple horses out there. Really good spot. Well, that was his spot, and nobody messed with him. And I thought he was out 6. I hadn't seen him all day. Growing up when you're in elementary, the way my school worked is everybody was pretty much in the same class. You had like 1 or 2 classes. I had a very small school. I graduated with 93 people in my class. And most of those people I grew up with. And so I was in his spot because I didn't think he was there. Well, he shows up and he was like, "You're in my spot." And I'm like, "Well, I got here first." You know how little kids do. And it was back and forth, a little pushing and stuffing. And we ended up getting in a fight. I still say I won that fight. He'll disagree. Well, I mean, look at it this way. I got a black eye. I give him a hairline fracture in his arm. But, of course, that was mainly his own weight falling against him when I threw him into the tree. So, I mean, you can take that anyway. I still say I won that fight. He'll kick my tail later for saying that. He always does. I can already feel my right arm hurting from the punch. And the teacher pretty much set us nose to nose as punishment. So we actually, after a few minutes, it was the beginning of the play period. So we pretty much had, like an hour and a half, however long our play periods were back then. I don't remember. So we got to talking and found out that, I'm the short, nerdy kid, and he's the big kid that everybody's afraid of, and we were both rejects, and we came to a conclusion. We could either A, stay enemies, and one of us would probably end up severely hurt, or team up and fight the power, fight the preps, fight the jocks and the flatheads and everybody else that considered us rejects and just thought we were uncool because of how we, thought. So we've been best friends ever since. That's, pretty much the beginnings of a very long and bizarre friendship. I can't go into all the details. And then he transfers out in middle school and then goes to another school, and then he meets Patrick, the sword shop owner. And they pretty much strike it off right off the bat. I don't know the full details of their first meeting. I do remember certain stories of Patrick and John making everybody believe that Patrick had a metal plate stuck in his head. The big trash cans that where you dump your food, they have some of them have the big magnets around the edge to catch all the silverware. Well, he was basically complaining that, his head was stuck to the trash can. It was quite a humorous story. But the first meeting of me and Patrick, we're in just getting into our historical reenactment group, and we have a demo at a big mall, and we're in full costume. John's wearing a deer skin drape with, the old Viking pants, and he's got a sword, and I've got this huge club, and I think Patrick had a staff or something. We all had medieval weapons, and we're in full medieval garb. I'm wearing my kilt, and we're walking in a big city area in a very large mall, going through J.C. Penney's or Sears or one of those, clothing stores. And, of course, people are approaching us. Can we help you? John pops up and is like, got anything in deer skin? I mean, it was one of those things where... And then eventually it was like, no, we're actually doing it was a demo for first night. It was when the movie just first came out. We were doing a demonstration up there, a little fighting, a little costuming. And it was like, no, we're here for the first night demonstration. We need to know where the theater is. Because I hadn't been to that mall in forever and couldn't remember where it was. I don't even think the theater was there the last time I had gone. So the first time that we had met, and John actually remembered the exact day, and that was the whole argument of us at the party, the Tool party, trying to figure, because me and Patrick had thought about 15 years, and John's like, no, it's 13. I know exactly the day we met. And he started lifting off, and that's what, it's got fresh in my head of the first meeting of me and Patrick. And, I've got this, actually I can't remember if Patrick was wearing the deer hide or if it was John. I'm pretty sure it was John. Anyway, so much for calling him Hammer. Trying to mask your identity. Not like you're gonna listen to this anyway. But yeah, that's the initial meetings of me and John, or Edward, or Hammer, or whatever name he happens to go by, Psycho, and Patrick. And he's got some alternate names, but I'm just gonna call him Patrick. Heck with it. If I become famous, and especially with him, that gives him advertisement for the sword shop. Buy a sword! pdswords.com. We'll order anything. Anyway, I'll go ahead and take another break. I rambled on long enough on this. Be back in a second. Kind of running out of ideas tonight. Might have to put this on hold and finish it up tomorrow. I'm off tomorrow. Yay! Finally get a day off. Great. The funny thing that actually a friend of mine has told me this more than once. Started out as a co-worker. He's my stockroom manager at my stockroom retail job that I still currently work at, sort of, whenever I'm not at the sword shop. And he made a comment one day that I must be an extremely sad and depressed person because I'm negative all the time. I find that absolutely hilarious, because I don't consider myself to be depressed. Now, I have my bad days. I have my good days. A lot of the times that you guys are hearing me is when I'm ranting. So you sometimes might catch up on, the negative side. But I don't consider myself negative or a pessimist. I consider myself a realist. A pessimist is someone that thinks everything is going to go wrong all the time, no matter what you do. And of course, an optimist is one that hopes that everything will go right all the time, wishing for the best. I am kind of a hybrid of the two. I'm a realist, which means that I can look at a situation, evaluate it, and come up with a logical conclusion on whether it's going to suck or not. I don't consider that being negative or being a pessimist. It's realizing that this is not going to go well and preparing accordingly. That's what I do. Case in point, at my job, at the retail job that I work, sales have been trending down, and you've heard me rant about it before, ever since the buyout. And they have what they call PLCCs, private labeled credit cards. And these are the worst thing. You do not ever get one. Like, for any private shop, if you go to Shop X or Shop Y and they have their own credit card, just say no. Because they'll make it sound all nice and good. Oh, you can save 20% on your sale. Yeah, it's all, majority of them are a cover, and there's hidden costs in there, and you're going to be making up for that 20%. Credit cards are evil. Bad. Don't ever get one unless you for emergency situations only. But getting back to it, she was telling us our goal of how many we were supposed to get for last month. And me already seeing the trend going down and knowing it was like, halfway through the month. This was for January. Already halfway through the month. We've only gotten like a couple dozen. And we were supposed to have 155. We only had like 20 something. And I could not help myself, and I let out a little chuckle. And she looks over to me and goes, "What's so funny?" "Do you really want to know?" was my reply. She is relatively new assistant manager, and she hadn't learned that if you don't want my opinion, don't ask for it, because I'll tell you. If you ask me something, I'm going to tell it to you straight. I like I said before, I have no tact. I don't pull punches. I don't put on kids' gloves. I'm going to be blunt, honest, to the point. Sorry if I hurt your feelings. You'll get over it. But anyway, and I told her, it's like, well, that's just ridiculous. I mean, they cannot expect us to make, even when we were doing $10,000 to $20,000 days for a month straight, granted, don't count in like Mondays and Tuesdays, because you never can get much on those days anyway. Most of it comes on Fridays and Saturdays when people are off work and can actually shop. And I'm like, it's halfway through the month, and we don't even have a fifth of that. And they want us to get 130 cards in 2 weeks? They're out of their freaking mind. There's no way it can happen. And unless we... see, the way our store works is we get a lot of repeat customers. So they either, A, already have a card, or B, are not going to get a card. Just plain and simple. Because a lot of people have wised up here lately, same as me, after learning the hard way. Credit cards are of the devil. You don't need one. If you can't afford to pay for it in cash, or use a credit card until, for an emergency situation, till you get your next paycheck, and then pay it off immediately, you don't need to use a credit card. Doing the whole floating money back and forth between this card and jumping back and forth, that only works in the short term. Eventually, you're screwed. And there's nothing people can do about it, because most people live paycheck to paycheck. One bad thing happens, they're out of luck. That was my situation. And then she, I told her, I don't have any credit cards. And then, I thought this was very untactful of her. In fact, that we were in a power session, bringing up some of my personal stuff in front of everybody, some of which I didn't care, because they already knew. But, some of these new people, I don't know them. I don't trust them. I'm not open to that extent. If I want to tell them, that's my business. Don't you go be spouting my business to somebody else. For the most part, I don't care. It was just one of those things that kind of rubbed me the wrong way. And then I popped off on her about that right in front of everybody. It's like, hey, you going to bring it up in front of everybody? I'm going to bring it right back to your face. And then, of course, I get called into the office about my attitude problem. It's like, look, you asked, you insulted me, I popped back. So, we're both in the wrong there. So, I'm sorry, let me go back to work. And she wanted to keep on. I was like, look, if it's that big of a deal for you, I can give you my badge right now, or you can shut up and let me go back and do my job. Because what we were talking about up there has nothing to do with what I do back in the stockroom. It's just one of those things that kind of set me off that day. But that's the kind of person I am. If you get up all in my face, you better be prepared to take it. If you can't dish it out, if you want to dish it out, you better be able to take it. Because I'll give it to you, whether you like it or not. Well, I'm going to go ahead and take another break. This rant kind of got away from me. See you in a second. They're coming into turn 4. It's Little Miss by a tail, followed quickly by D'Artagnan. Oh, here comes Boots around the outside. Oh, he's trying to make it. He's trying to make it. Oh, he's into the wall. It's a 3-kitty pileup. Ah! Sorry, I've got kitty NASCAR going on right here. The kittens are decided they had to be on the other side of the trailer yesterday. And then once they get there, they had to decide, it's like, no, we wanted to be over here. And they are ripping and roaring back and forth, going through the bead curtains. My bead curtains got about like 5 or 6 different knots in them now that I'm going to have to go untangle. Hopefully they'll just run through a few more times and knock them loose. Oh, here they come again. Ow, that didn't look good. I've got, looks like an old bullet shell casing from like some massive gun that would be on like a battleship or something that I use as a doorstop. It came with the trailer. And all 3 kittens were coming around the corner, and Boots and Dart bumped into each other, and Boots caught it headlong. He's still sitting there going, I meant to do that. Yeah. Oh, God. Talking about kitty stories. You know, and I say cats are smarter than dogs, and on average, I mean, all animals, you know, have their moments. You know, little quirks. You know, cats like to chase, you know, the laser pointer. Oh, laser pointers and kittens are much fun. Even adult cats. Some of them will just sit there and stare at it going, go away. You're bothering me. And then you got stuff like Shelties and stuff on the dog front. And, you know, to train them, you just hand them the book. And then they come back and give you corrections. But I've got this stone fireplace. You know, it's odd for a trailer to have a fireplace, but I've been in a few with a fireplace. We got a stone fireplace, you know, the stone wall. And yeah, I've been lazy. It's February, and I've still got a stocking up on my mantle that I haven't taken down. And Boots was trying his best to figure out, no, it wasn't Boots, I'm sorry, D'Artagnan. It was D'Artagnan was trying his best to figure out how to get to it, and I had a table set up. And it was just out of his reach. He'd have his back legs on the table, leaning out and trying to reach for it, and then he'd dive for it, and he'd fall off. And that's where I keep my crushed cans, is by the fireplace, because we can't use it, because the thing hadn't been used in like 9 years, so it needs to be cleaned out, make sure there's no broken rocks or anything like that to be safe. So I just pile all my crushed cans there till I can haul them off to the recycle. Save the planet! And he does this like 4 or 5 times before he realizes, okay, I give up. Well, then Boots, later on, decides he wants to try to get the stocking. So he gets up on the table, he does a few of the same things, and then I guess he notices they have a bad habit of climbing curtains. So they're used to being able to climb certain objects in the trailer. I'm still trying to break them of that. And the only one they still climb is, well, the one that used to be in the living room. They've already bent up. You know, it was one of those double curtain rods. You had the main curtain, then you had like the little bitty curtain above it. And they bent the bottom one. So I was able to bend it back, put it as the top one, and switch it. But now both of them are completely and utterly destroyed. So I've got like a big blanket thing kind of nailed to my wall until I can get some new curtain rods. So they're used to climbing on those curtains. Well, Boots, for some reason, thought, hey, I don't know exactly what this surface is, because they usually have cans in front of it, so they don't really get to explore that area. And I see him looking, and right as I'm about to say, I think he's about to jump at the wall, he jumps headlong and, you know, sprawls out with his claws out and tries to grasp onto the rock. And it's one of those where it's got individual rocks with the mortar in between. So there's little bitty ledges here and there. And he grabbed onto one ledge with his left paw just enough to kind of hang him there for about half a second until he slides and goes and scrambles and goes and hits the aluminum cans. And of course they make a huge ruckus and spooks him and spooks the other cats, and they disappear for 2 hours. Fun with kittens. When they hate it when I have to change the trash bag. You know, most people, when they take the empty trash bag to put the new bag in, they sit there and they shake it and try to get the air and open it up easier. Well, I do that, and of course, I catch a loud pop and bah! cow, and the kittens go everywhere. Oh, it's much fun. So this is a mini kitty update. They hadn't been back through in a while, so they're probably in there. They've got, all three of them play with this particular toy. It's one of those little mice that's got like the super long tail on it. Well, they'll pick up the mouse and be walking, and all three of them do this. They'll trip themselves. They'll be walking and with the tail trailing beneath their feet, and they'll step on it and trip. It's quite funny. And they still do it. They've been doing it, well, before. Heck, the mouse is almost as big. Well, actually, I think it's longer than they are. Not now, but when they were kittens. And for some reason, they obviously think this mouse, I don't know if they think it's alive and they're trying to take care of it after they've beaten it back and forth across the trailer, but they will put it in their water bowl. I guess the mouse was thirsty. I'm going to go ahead and stop this, take another break. I just had to do the whole kitten thing. And I'll get back with you guys in a second. Hold on. We're going to have a hot time in the old town tonight. This is a topic that's, this gets under a lot of people's skin and gets feathers ruffled and all those other things that you can use to analyze, you know, I don't even remember what's that term, analogy, you know, where you're using one thing to describe something like slicker than snot on a doorknob, whatever that term is. You guys probably know it, because you're a bunch of smart little monkeys. Of course you are, because you're listening to me. You gotta have some intelligence if you're listening to me. Well, you could argue that point too. But anyway, the thing I was going to talk about, global warming. Yeah, that's one of those topics that's on everybody. You know, everybody's talking about it now. So why not me? I'll talk about global warming. For the long time, when it first started, you know, when I was in high school and stuff like that, you know, I didn't think much of it. As I've gotten older and I've done research and things like that, I'm not on one side. I think both sides have it partly right. But neither side, you know, if you take the two extremes where some people say global warming is a left-wing crock and they're doing all these research things to get your money. And then the right wing, the oil mongers are saying, you know, well, actually, it's the oil mongers that are saying that, you know, the oil companies are saying that global warming is not happening. Keep buying our fossil fuels. And then you've got the left wing that says that global warming is a man-made problem and we're all going to die, you know, if we don't do something about it. I'm more of I've got a few bits and pieces from either side. Because the Earth goes through cycles. It's been going through cycles for, as best as scientific knowledge that we have today, for millions of years. You know, I'm not of the young Earth society. I believe in an old Earth, and that's another. If you don't know the difference, it's usually most of the time the argument between the old Earth and the new Earth is a religious standpoint, where the Earth has only been around for like 6,000 years, or I don't remember the exact date, but a very short period of time. And then you have your old Earth argument, where the Earth has been around for millions of years. I'm old Earth. It's been around for millions of years. I believe that scientific data a lot better than other things. But anyway, getting back to global warming, I do believe that the Earth is going through cycles. I mean, by best scientific data, the Midwest, where most of our crops and, you know, a lot of farmland and cattle and everything like that, a few thousand years ago, it was a desert. There was nothing out there but sand. And that's another reason, you know, they say there's only a small layer of topsoil in that region. Well, that's because it's only had a few thousand years to create topsoil. The rest of the time it was desert. And, you know, other reasons, and we've gone through ice ages and back and forth. And ice ages go in cycles. And right before every ice age, there is a warming trend. Because what happens is all the ice melts, and then the waters fill up, the oceans rise, and then there's a massive temperature change, and then the temperatures plummet. Well, if you go by that standpoint, this warming trend could be a prelude to an ice age. Could be. I mean, we're going by several different scientific standpoints, but where I'm trying to get my view. But I believe that the Earth is going through a temperature trend, like it's just going through a normal cycle. But humans releasing CO2, that nasty carbon dioxide, and at a very alarming rate, because CO2 does hold in heat. And of course, the more CO2 you have in the atmosphere, the more heat is going to be retained. We burn a lot of fossil fuels that dump a ton of CO2 into the atmosphere. So, the Earth is going through a natural warming trend. But humans are compounding the issue and making it happen at a much faster rate than it should, giving that most natural selection and adaptation that I've talked about before in a previous rant, that adaptation won't get enough time for the animals to adapt to that rapid of a temperature change. If given time, over a slow period of time, they will adapt. Now, the Earth has already gone through several mass extinctions. The dinosaurs going extinct. And before that, there was another mass extinction layer that they were able to discover, where pretty much over 90% of the animals on the planet were obliterated due to massive volcanic eruptions and too much heat coming in. And if it gets to a critical point where we can't do anything about it, and plants, if too much CO2, plants absorb CO2, turn it into oxygen. Well, if the temperature gets too hot, plants do a bizarre thing. Instead of releasing oxygen, they release CO2 back into the atmosphere. It has something to do with the extreme heat. I'm not really knowledgeable on that. You'll have to do your own research. So instead of filtering out all the carbon, it's actually putting more carbon back in the atmosphere. So our natural filter of CO2, plants, are not doing their job. So that's going to compound the issue. I saw this really cool thing on, I think it was Nat Geo, called 6 degrees. What would happen to the Earth if it just got 6 degrees hotter on average? Basically, life as we know it would end. Is a whole argument for global warming. Now, some people still want to argue that global warming doesn't even exist. You're stupid. The Earth is getting hotter. Now, the main argument is what is actually causing it? Is it a natural climate change? Or is it a natural climate change plus humans? Or is it just humans? The Earth is getting hotter. That I fully agree with. I'm just not totally sold on one way or the other. I'm leaning towards the combination of the two. It's a natural trend, but it is being compounded by humans and the CO2 emissions and CFCs of getting rid of, that we're destroying the ozone layer. We got big holes up there, and we can actually see that with our scientific technology. There are holes in the ozone layer, big ones, letting in more heat. But it also lets some heat escape too. But, not as much goes out. It has to do with wavelengths and stuff after it bounces. That's something I'm not real good at. I know a little. I consider myself a scientist in the standpoint that I do research and I'll compile the data and come up with conclusions and hypotheses and all that good technical jargon. Because I love trying to figure stuff out. And then you've got this another thing, and I've just started researching this about a Planet X or Nibiru, or I don't remember exactly. There's several different names that it goes by. And some people say it's a planet. Some people say it's a dwarf star called a brown star. It has a 3,000 year orbit. And every 3,000 years, it comes back into our solar system and causes havoc. And they date it back to the an ancient culture, and I can't think of the name right now, that it destroyed, and they refer to it as the Destroyer. And that was also around the time we had our last polar shift, by best scientific data. the poles shift about every 3,000 to 4,000 years by best estimates, where the poles are like on an axis spinning. And the way I kind of look at that is, and there's another astral phenomenon that's supposed to happen where we will be in, the sun will be on one side, we're going to be in the middle, and on the other side is the direct center of the galaxy. And they say that might be the cause of the polar shift, because that alignment happens about every 3,000 years. You've got several different theories popping up right now about what could be causing this massive polar shift and the massive weather and everything like that. So expand your brain, go hit the internet, look at all the different theories from many different sources, and don't go to YouTube and listen to these guys that do the robot voices and talking about government conspiracies and stuff like that. I don't find them to be credible. If you're a credible person and you're an accredited scientist and you want to get your viewpoints out, you shouldn't have to hide your identity. But that's just my standpoint. So go to some accredited research sites. There's tons of them out there, and educate yourself. That's my main thing. Is people don't just need to sit there and watch one particular news network or listen to one person and say, oh, he's right, and not get other viewpoints. Listen to everybody, get all the different data, figure out who's saying BS and who's just coming up with wild ideas, and come up with your own conclusion. Don't just believe somebody else because they say, it's on the news. But anyway, this has been my last little, thing on global warming. Man, I'm running out of ideas tonight. I think I'm going to, cut it, go to bed, come back, finish up my ranting hour. Hey, I never said I was going to do it in one sitting. Ha ha. Talk to you guys in a bit. Okay, I've touched on bigotry before, but this is more localized. This is against gay bashers. There's also another term, they call them homophobics, which a phobia is a fear of something. And most people that I classify as homophobics are actually gay haters. These are people that actually go out looking for people because of their different sexual orientation and beat the living crap out of them, lynch them, or even kill them because they happen to be gay. Or as the term they like to use, a fag. I hate that term. That's another one of those ugly words that you don't use around me, otherwise you're going to hear it. You're going to get an earful. And I'm going to make you feel about this tall. Tiny. After I get done with you. And if you pop back in my face, I'll make you that tall because I'm going to beat you into the ground, you piece of crap. People that they say it's a choice. They choose to be gay, and therefore they're evil and are going to hell. Well, my argument with the people with that, because I believe people are born that way. It's a genetic thing. They don't have a choice. And I've used this argument time and time again, and not a single person in my entire lifetime, over 20 years of using this argument, has been able to stump me on it. It's like, okay, if you think being a homosexual is a choice and you're a straight person, can you choose to be gay? Can you? Can you really? Because if you can, that means you have bisexual tendencies and are a self-loather. Beat that. Alright? Come back with whatever stupid argument you want to and debunk me on that. Because if you think they're choosing to sleep with another man or another woman by choice, okay, if you're a straight person, can you choose to sleep with another man or another woman? Or is it so ingrained in your genetic code that is impossible? I'm a straight guy. I do not find the male sex attractive at all. Now, I can admit when a guy looks good. That's totally different. But, it doesn't get me all worked up to, look at a guy. It just doesn't happen. I'm straight. I was made that way. I didn't choose to be straight. I didn't choose to be gay. I was born straight. That's just the way I am. And it just drives me nuts that these gay bashers go out and it's like, oh, that's a gay person. And the people that really drive me nuts are the religious fanatics. Now, I'm not talking all religion. I'm just talking about the fanatical ones that says that you can accept Jesus to get to heaven, but if you're gay, you're going to hell no matter what. Even if a gay person accepted Jesus into their life, by their definition, that person would still go to hell. Don't make a lot of sense to me. So I'll ask the question again, just to make sure I'm clear on this. If you think homosexuality is a choice and you're straight, can you choose to be gay? That I just want an answer. And for those of you that have been following me, I actually do have a forums now. It's not fully set up. I still got to make some categories and stuff and pretty it up. But anybody that hears this that wants to give me their opinion, that's what the forums are for. I want feedback. I've got an email address, angus@angusthemadcow.com. I've got my forums. So if you got something you need to get off your chest, later on, I'm going to have it set up on the forums where you will be able to actually upload your own audio rant. You won't have to just do it in text. That will be later on down the line. So look for that. Because I want to make this basically a community of people, ideas, rants, getting, different thoughts out there and us hashing it out. Because I don't know everything. And I can admit when I'm wrong on certain subjects. Now, there are going to be some subjects that I ain't going to budge on. Because that's just the way I think. But I have been proven wrong many times in my life. And I'm not ashamed to admit it. And I will correct myself. It's like, okay, you proved me wrong. You're right. And you won't hear it often. But it does happen. So, I just had to get that whole gay bashing thing off my chest because that really pisses me off. You freaking... lots of stuff I want to say that I'd have to edit out anyway. Alright. Yeah, one other thing I've got to bring up on this. It just popped into my head. I was going to wrap this one up, but I'm going to actually stretch out this segment. Getting ready to wrap up this hour. Running close on time. So I'm going to stick with this topic. Another thing that I wanted to talk about is... And I know this happened, a while back. And my condolences to the Heath Ledger family. And all the crap they had to deal with because of some religious fanatics that wanted to picket his funeral. Because he's a gay enabler. Because of a particular movie he was in where he portrayed a gay male. Okay, anybody that goes to someone else's religious ceremony to bury their loved ones and you want to picket them for whatever reason, even if, for example, if someone passed away and they were a Ku Klux Klan member and you go to their funeral and picket against the Ku Klux Klan, I'm targeting you people too, okay? This is for everybody. If someone is being put to rest by their loved ones, they should be free to do so in peace without some group, religious, non-religious, whatever, outside picketed them for whatever reason whatsoever. Okay? Let me get that perfectly clear. So I'm going to repeat myself on this. Do not go to someone else's funeral and picket them for whatever reason. I don't care what it is. Whether you hate them because, you want to picket them because they were a Ku Klux Klan member, or you want to picket them because they were a gay enabler, or anything like that. Because how would you feel if, someone came to, and I don't remember the church's name, and I don't want to single out, I do want to single out that church, but I'm not going to give the name. I could have researched it and popped it on here, but I'm not going to. How would someone of that church like me to come to your loved one's funeral and picket you because you are an idiot and a bigot. You know, I'm picketing you because you're a bigot against gay enablers and all of these other groups. You know, you wouldn't like it very much if I came to your, you know, husband's or wife's or sister's or daughter's funeral and threw a hissy fit out in the front lawn complaining about how you are a gay hater. You wouldn't like that very much, now would you? Now, see, I'm not going to do that, because that is a very holy, solemn thing that should not be messed with. People should be able to put their dead to rest by what means they want to, in private, with respect, without somebody else on the freaking lawn picking them for whatever reason they wanted to. Okay? You know, they talk about, you know, freedom of speech and everything like that, and I believe in freedom of speech. I don't believe in censorship, but that's crossing a line. Okay? If I'm walking past, you know, that's one of those things where if I could get a whole group of my buddies and go down to that church and just beat the living crap out of those people that were picketing outside of that funeral home and drag them off by the hairs or whatever means to get them off there so that family could put him to rest in peace, I would have. I just didn't find out about it until like a couple days later because I didn't even know he had passed. And also on their flyer, the flyer that they put up talking about him Heath being a gay enabler, they said nothing that he had ever done previous or after that movie was of any consequence. The simple fact that he portrayed a gay male in a movie, labeled him as a gay enabler, and him and everybody like him is going to hell. You know, I mentioned that earlier in this rant. That those are some of those religious fanatics that just really piss me off. Yeah. So that was another thing I had to get out there, because I was actually going to talk about it earlier and then I lost my train of thought and then I saw the time. But anyway, I hope I got my point across. You gay bashing, lots of words I don't want to say and have parents cringe. I'm a potty mouth, okay? Talk to you guys in a bit. I'll wrap this up in a second. Moo! Moo! Moo, 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 moo. Hi! Or actually, bye! I'm gonna have to wrap this up. My hour's over and done with. Sigh. I know you guys are so upset that I'm having to leave you now. Oh. Well, good thing about this one being late, you know, halfway through the month of February, it won't be that much longer before you get the March edition of Angus. Yes! March 1st will be, hopefully, when I get back on schedule of releasing my ranting hour once a month. Until I can free up some time. Yeah. Working 6 and 7 days a week, and then coming home and trying to spit out rants. Granted, I have tons of material, but I'm usually so tired, everything comes out like crap, and I just delete it. Not stuff you want to hear. You know, people might make fun of the fact that, you know, I just, you know, free flow this stuff, and they're like, man, you know, you should come up with some scripts. I try to come up with at least, you know, a rough skeleton of this stuff, you know, before I sit down and hit record, but scripts? Heh, that ain't gonna happen. I mean, impromptu stuff, man. If you can't fly by the seat of your pants and just come up with stuff, you know, on the go, you know, scripts are alright, but that's just not my bag. That's not the way I run things. Right now, anyway. You know, I like to change stuff around, so later on you might get a full scripted show. But for now, I gotta say goodbye. Oh well. Have fun. Take care, guys. This has been Angus, the Mad Cow, and this has been my ranting hour. Talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.